Hello and welcome to Class, where we have a class about a class. Topic of the day today is fighters, the tabula rasa of all the classes. It is unto a certain irony for me that when I'm playing video games, different RPGs and stuff, I almost always play as like the warrior, the fighter, the brawler. When I played World of Warcraft, I was always playing as the warrior the most, just so I could be up in the action, doing shield slams, doing crowd control, tanking, etc., etc. But actually, when it comes to tabletop RPGs, I usually pick the fighter last. Like, my bottom three are the monk, the barbarian, and the fighter. And I don't really know why that is until I started reading all this. And I kind of realized that warriors, and again, tabula rasa was kind of the best thing I could come up with, the blank slate. Fighters are among the simplest class in Dungeons and Dragons, if only because they're not really, they don't use magic, they don't come with they don't have any alignment things to do, they have no behavioral problems or behavioral rules they have to follow. They're just like the guy with the most health, the biggest weapon, the thickest armor, and that's what I thought fighters were for a long time. But sitting and reading this, this is 3.5's Player's Handbook, and I have Pathfinder and 5th edition and different things like that, but fighters don't look like much because they're not much until you make them something. They're so versatile, way beyond the other classes, to the point where if you're creative, you can make a fighter into almost anything. You can be a mercenary, you can be, a bandit lord, a knight, a freaking arena champion. You can be all kinds of stuff. And I did notice that, much like the other classes, you can narrow them down, into three broad categories. The first kind of fighter is the guy who jumps in, he's got, high strength, high constitution, gets some chainmail, and then throws all of his feats into being better with one kind of weapon. I call them the weapon master. Whether it be axes, swords, rapiers, there's dexterity fighters that favor the longbow, things like that, to where they will throw everything they possibly can, all their points, all their extra fighter feats and things like that, into dealing the most damage with a particular type of weapon, and that just bores me to tears as an RPG player, because yeah, you can roleplay whatever you want, but your character, Tordek, it's your turn, what do you do? Well, I hit it with my sword, what else am I gonna do, And that's not to say that, your party doesn't appreciate that, you doing massive amounts of damage, but just as a D&D character, you really only have one answer to things, is to either hit it with your weapon or to step aside and let somebody else deal with it. Because in general, that's all fighters are good for, fighting. They're not so bad as the barbarian to where they're like illiterate and their stats move around depending on the situation, but if you want a fighter to be good, you really have to kind of dig in, look at a bunch of books, see all the feats, find out what you can about your environment, as far as what kind of campaign it's going to be. You might try for something similar to the Ranger's favored enemy. If goblins are a big problem in your area, you might be slightly better at fighting goblins because, that's how you get a lot of your work around these parts is, people send you out to the farms every 3 or 4 days to kill another round of goblins. So you're just that much better at fighting goblins. But fighters, and just in general, fighters are defined by their feats, to where, rogues have all their skill points, clerics have their god and all the rules they have to follow with their god, knights have a code of conduct. Fighters are all about their feats because they don't get very many skill points, but they get a ton of feats. And not only regular feats like everybody else, like every few levels you get another feats. Fighters get bonus feats like every other level. So you're going to be able to further define yourself as a character by the feats that you pick. Let's see, and just in general, like fighters can be any alignment. Fighters, as far as religion goes, there's, Heronius, the god of valor, Cord, the god of strength, Saint Cuthbert, the god of retribution. They're not, they could be atheist, they can be any number of things. Combat veterans, springing from a military family, mercenaries, any number of things. There's so many choices unto what a fighter is. It kind of falls on your own creativity to make him anything memorable beyond the biggest sword and the thickest armor, which has always been the biggest challenge for me because I want to wield some kind of magic, or I want to be, the social butterfly, or the guy growing a tree in 5 seconds, or different things like that. So fighters, I don't know, never had a ton of interest for me. So yeah, skill points 2 plus intelligence. So wisdom and charisma are going to be your dump stats pretty much. So you want high strength, you want high constitution, you want high dexterity because that's going to add to your armor. Just different things like that. And the game does come to a certain point where it doesn't matter as far as mundane items go. It doesn't matter how much armor you're wearing, it's not going to do you any good. So I've seen, fighters basically run around in regular clothes so they don't have to suffer all those -8s, -12s to what few skills they do have, to where, they're running around like Conan. They've just got like a couple of leather straps to hold all of their weapons onto their bodies, and that's pretty much it. They might have like a special helmet or a special shield on them to make up for the bulk of their AC, but otherwise it just gets to the point where wearing heavier and heavier armor until you get like enchanted stuff, or until you get, rings, amulets. Fighters protectively are pretty much defined by their gear. So if you've got a DM that's known for being stingy with magic items, or with like, super epic stuff like up through the levels, then fighter may not be the best choice, because you can go shopping for all the best feats and you're going to have the most health, but it doesn't do you much good if everybody that sneezes at you does damage. You can take it for a while, but you're still perfectly mortal. Weapon and armor proficiency. A fighter is proficient with all simple and martial weapons, and with all armor and all shields. So you're the one guy that can wear everything. Let's see. First level, a fighter gets a bonus combat-oriented feat in addition to their first level feat, and bonus feat granted to a human character. Fighter gains an additional bonus feat at second level and every 2 fighter levels thereafter. So again, your knowledge, depending on how many books are available to you, a fighter can be really exotic or completely forgettable. So there's not a whole ton. Their base attack goes up by +1 every level. So they're reliably going to be able to hit everything. Their fortitude save goes up pretty quick, so they're going to be able to withstand, poisons and physical, down-to-earth problems. So I don't know, there's not a ton to say until you go, like I said, until you go into the other books, you start defining your characters. Like, I could just go into feats now and then look at stuff for, feats 87. There's a big double page in the regular player's handbook, and it's just, what do you need for this setting? Do you need to be agile and get, the bonus to balance and escape artist? I guess if you were going jungle trekking or something, walking across logs all the time, or Athletics. Do you need to be able to climb and swim better? Is that going to do you any good if you're wearing plate mail? Obviously, there's feat chains like combat expertise. You can trade your attack bonus for AC. There's dodge, get +1 AC against a certain target. If you're wanting to be a tank, there's all kinds of feats that give you circumstantial bonuses. And if you're just there to be the wall, well, there's a ton of stuff here. Investigator, if you're a mercenary and you need to be good at finding people, +2 to gather information and search checks. Leadership, if you're like a bandit lord, attract cohorts and followers. Again, like I've said with other classes, the best thing to do is to write like a page about this character, and then when you're building it into stats, then you use the backstory to pick what you've got, and it actually makes more sense and makes it come out more like a character. Because you can be self-sufficient, you can have, the +2 to heal and survival, but, if he lives in the middle of a big city, what's the point of that? You try and press your DM a little bit for the circumstances of the campaign, even if it's only like a single sentence, like, the zombie apocalypse is upon you, you're part of the cleanup crew to help secure the last bastion of humanity, and it's your job to stand at the top of the wall and, shoot zombies in the head day in and day out, and then, when things lull down, you're supposed to run down there with a torch and catch things on fire so that they don't get up again if a necromancer should wander by, and things like that. It's like, well, then you're not going to put a ton of points into climb or swim. You're going to put points into being a better shot with a bow, or, being a siege engineer. God, I've always wanted to play a siege engineer in D&D, but there's not really a campaign that calls for a ton of catapult shots, unless that's just what the campaign is completely focused on. Or if, you're the bouncer at a particular tavern, you want to be better at fisticuffs than you are with swords, because if you just start fucking killing people, then you're going to get arrested pretty quick. You want to be good with your bare fists, you want to be good with tackling people, you want to be good with bull rush, you want to be good with grapple, really good with grapple if you're going to be a bouncer. You want to be good with intimidate. You have to make up your character before you define him in stats as a fighter, because otherwise you're just going to be like, oh, I'm a fighter, so I need a high constitution so I can have all my health. I need the biggest sword I can get my hands on. I need some plate mail, and I think I'll just throw all my feats into doing 2 or 3 more damage with my sword. No, that's boring. That's every other goddamn fighter from now to 1987, or whenever it was. Sorry, 70s. The 1970s, when D&D started, the fighter was the guy with the big sword, the most armor, and the most health. You're better than that. You are. Especially narratively speaking. Like, just from personal experience, the one time that I broke down and played a fighter, he was a lumberjack. Yeah. His feats were in, or not feats, like his like regular skills and things were like weapon proficiency with 2-handed axes. He had knowledge geography, knowledge local. He had, what was it? I think a higher fortitude save. He had high constitution, so he had more health. He had no armor. Dude's a lumberjack. What does he need armor for? And he got thrown into like a circumstantial adventure, and his eventual like lofty goal was like, if I'm going to be involved with all this magic and stuff, was that by the end of his adventure he wanted to bring home a mithril axe, because in that setting mithril didn't break, mithril didn't grow dull, so he figured, if I got a mithril axe and went home to do my lumberjack stuff, well then I'd never have to worry about sharpening an axe, getting a new axe, any of that kind of stuff. And he did eventually get his mithril axe, and he went home happy at the end of that adventure. So, that was a fairly humble fighter's, like, hero's journey, but, he was unique. He was something other than just the biggest sword and the hardest swing. I think for me, the biggest trouble with fighters is they, as a class, they don't define themselves. You do. You know what you're in for if you play as a druid. You have to respect nature. You call upon animals. You have some magic. If you're a wizard, you know what you're in for. You need a high wisdom and intelligence. You get a spell book. You have to study every day. Rogues get tons and tons and tons of skill points and backstab. Fighters really don't get anything unless you say. So, you're the guy that can wear, virtually any armor and, use virtually any weapon, exotics aside. But fighters are the tabula rasa, so they're only as good as you make them, in other words. So it's harder for me to get behind a fighter unless I have a really particular type of character set aside. Like, hey, we're going to play D&D. We need, we've got a wizard, a rogue, and a druid, or a wizard, a rogue, and a cleric. We need like a melee, or why don't you come and play a fighter? My knee-jerk reaction is going to be no. Or my second knee-jerk reaction will be, well, what's the story there? What kind of fighter? And beyond the I'm so good with this weapon fighter, there's the weapon master. I've seen a lot of weapon masters. People that start out with 1,000 gold and they'll spend 900 of it, just like, I want a club and a great sword and a small axe and some throwing darts, and they carry like 12 weapons, and there's no damn reason for it, because they usually just favor one. And on the off chance that they drop one, they pull another one, or they carry, a crossbow in case they can initiate a fight, things like that. The people that carry around way too many damn weapons, they're not so much fighters as they are freaking psychopaths, and they're only happy when they're killing something. What kind of character is that? Ugh. And I imagine there's mercenaries out there that enjoy their work, or bandit lords that are out there that, they've got 6 levels in fighter. That's just what they do if you don't hand over your coin purse. But man, I guess you could kind of gain intimidation bonuses if you've got like 6 visible weapons all over your body. You might get intimidation bonuses for that. But, that's no different than the barbarian. So, what is that unto you as a fighter? I don't know. And let's see, I thought I had 3. There's the weapons master, the cardboard cutout guy, that's the sword and shield, and I do this much damage. Then there's the oddballs, I guess. The fighters that base their stuff on dexterity, so they're like really good, really, really good with a longbow. Or, they carry a whip and they've got, 7 attacks of opportunity and a 20-foot radius to like whip and trip people, and they can do it 7 times a turn and stuff like that. Those tend to be like the number crunchier characters. They're really good at a certain thing, and it's usually something really strange, whether it be whips or extra attacks of opportunity, or the fighter that wears plate mail and throws like plus 20 into swim, so he can just like tackle somebody else who's wearing plate mail into like a river, and then like he's got the plus 20 to swim, so he just kind of floats in his fucking plate mail. Just the really strange fighters pop up now and then, but that's like people that sit and flip through the book and, this feat from this book, and, this feat from this book, and this feat from this book. I bet I could do something really outrageous. I forget what class it was. I think it was, this guy was playing as a fighter who had some levels in Dragoon, and he put tons and tons and tons of skill points into jump. And, like, they got into a fight with a dragon, and his first move, of course, was to leap high into the air in his fucking plate mail with, like, a big javelin, and the dragon just kind of blurts, "You can fly?" before he got a javelin to the face. So, make of that what you will. Not a whole ton else to say other than going into like cherry picking and really particular scenarios. There's not a ton you can actually say about fighters because they're built the way you build them. You know, it's just like, what feats do you have access to? What is your campaign going to be like? You know, write a one-page story about him so that his feats make sense, and then build him into a character. And that's the best kind of fighter that you can make. You know, because the guy with the big weapon who just does the most damage, or the guy with the thickest armor who stands between you and the enemy, well, yeah, but you and every other fighter from here to 1970. So strive for creativity, even if it's not like the most like number-wise, if it's not the most efficient fighter out there, at least you'll be memorable. At least you'll be a person and not a stat sheet. So I guess that's really all I have to say. I know this one was kind of short, but again, fighters don't come with a lot of rules. They can be any alignment, any religion, any background, usually a mundane background, but just, you know, you are who you choose to be, now choose, basically, is what a fighter becomes. Aside from being ultimately defined by his gear, fighters are defined by their feats. So I know I'm talking in circles, so I guess that's all I have to say about fighters for now. If you guys have played as a fighter and, you know, you thought you were, you know, unique in some way, tell me in the comments below, what made you unique as a fighter? You know, what combination of feats did you have that made you cool or extra useful to your party? Did you come across a magic item that just defined you for the rest of the campaign because, you know, you got a shield that can never bend, or you got a plate helm that would give battle commands when you didn't know which way to go, different things like that. What stories did you come away with from your D&D or Pathfinder or whatever experiences that had to do with fighters? So I will see you guys on the next class. Keep gaming.